I figured it was more important to just deliver the information than to scroll through and find another air, fire, earth, and water picture. I'm trying to add a few things here that people asked about, which included urine therapy and gold, and what fire has to do with producing gold. And even though I've done this talk quite a few times, I think this is the most simple way to explain it to people. They say, how many elements are there? And someone says there's 4 elements. Well, that's not making any sense, because there's not 4 elements. And how can this be proven? How are we talking about this? What does an element mean versus what the atoms make up? Okay. You have air, and we say air is an element, and we call it oxygen. But then we say water is an element. But water has oxygen in it, so it becomes quite confusing. Now we're talking about densities, and we're talking about something very peculiar, because water has 3 states of being: a liquid, a solid, and a gas. But then there's some really interesting work done on a 4th phase of water. They call it easy water. I think his name is Gerald Pollack. You can look in his work. So here we are talking about these 4 elements that they're told exists. Like, you're told 4 elements exist. And so you've got the air and then water. Even though water contains air, so it doesn't seem to be different. So wouldn't I say hydrogen and oxygen are different elements? Okay, and then they say to you, Earth exists. Well, Earth seems obvious that it exists because we're standing on it. And what's Earth made of? Well, Earth could be so many different things, and then we could get into a few other cultures that use metal as a different type of substance. Well, they call it another element, in fact. Metal is a different element. I don't want to confuse people in saying substances and elements, even though I think we'll do a talk on that at some point in time. A substance is to stand under, and an element, it means an angle of the mind. It's not really for here right now, though. So here we are with this air, fire, earth, and water. Air is, once again, I'm going to walk you through this, is oxygen. And this is what we're told it is. It's hardly verifiable. There could be a billion other things going on in the air that you hear that sound? Oh, that's going through the air. You smell that right there? What is that, a barbecue? What else is in the air? What is mixed in the oxygen? Then we look at the water and we say, well, there's more things in the water than just oxygen, because, well, there is definitely oxygen plus hydrogen. And then everybody says, well, put salt in the water. Put these things in the water. There's fish in the water. There's certain types of salts in the water. So it's okay now. Okay, getting a little confusing here. And then we look at the Earth and we say, well, what's the Earth made of? Well, we might just say it's carbon. We could say carbon. We could baseline all of this, and we could just kind of say, well, carbon is a very important one of the elements. Carbon. We'll call that Earth. And we'll call oxygen air. Okay. And then we'll call water hydrogen, even though this is a little confusing, because we're told that hydrogen is a gas and oxygen is a gas, and somehow they come together and they make water, and they can't produce this in a laboratory, and there's no way of figuring out how it's done, that 2 elements that appear to be gases produce something that's liquid and denser and a fluid, and there's something. So let's start here again. So we'll just agree that there is somehow this thing we'll call carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Well, what is fire? It's none of those things. It doesn't exist. Fire does not exist. I mean, you can see it. You can explain what it does. It's almost like gravity. And I say that in a sense, and a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek humor for people that have listened to Neil deGrasse Tyson. Gravity, we can't. Next question. We don't know how that works. Like, we can explain it and what it does and and all of these things about what gravity is. But everybody knows that gravity doesn't really exist on this plane of flat existence we live on, just densities. But what fire is very akin to the way that gravity is explained. And gravity, as I've made clear before, is very connected to magnetism. This gets into the electrical universe theory, the electric universe theory. But let's just focus on the fire here. What is fire? Fire is not oxygen. It uses whatever it is. I'm putting air quotes around that. It uses oxygen to fuel it. And it, as fire, uses wood or earth. We'll just use the earth idea here as the other fuel, right? And something happens where it becomes flame. It becomes fire. It is, what is it though? It's not anything. It's a transmutative force. It's a force. It's the energy of such. The other three things are there they are. You're in this sea of oxygen, and then we can actually look at the denser sea of liquid, and then we can see that we're standing on top of the solid material world. And then we get into looking at, from the standpoint of what fire is. Wow, now let's get a little deeper here, guys. What is a tree made of? Because the most standard source of producing fire tends to be wood. That's people's connection to what fire is. Their idea. You'd put a log on the fire. You'd use wood. You'd use the tree. The tree is my Führer, my father. The tree is the father figure. And we can get into the tree and the use in magic and making a pencil out of it. There's a lot of ways we can play this little thing here, but I want you to focus on what a tree is. And a tree is made of, well, there's that giant light in the sky, which is producing heat, which seems to have the fire qualities. And that is connecting with something in the earth, which is water. So the fire and the water come together to make a tree, because it's obvious to see that the tree isn't eating the soil, nor is it eating the elements in the soil. You could watch it. Look at these giant trees everywhere. It hasn't made the soil level go down, but yet you have this thing that sits there in front of you that is tens of thousands of pounds. You see these giant pine trees. Where did it get its weight from? So it transmuted water with the help of fire or the heat in the sky, and turn it in some physical object, some dense material that you'd call earth. So what happened here? Fire got together with water. Well, fire was the first thing, and it was like, hey, what's up, water? Let's produce a solid. Now, it's so far from the sophomoric mind to see how that could occur. Oh, no, they just go, oh, no, science said it's this thing in his call, and it's this word that means, I don't know, nobody can really explain how it works, but they just give us a fancy word. And it creates carbon. But if you just look at it from a very still mind, you'd see that you have weight, which is, there's no weight to light. There's weight to water, but there's no form to it. And then we could get into what diamonds are and what glass is and what crystals are. And it has a lot to do with water and sunshine. But those, it's the sunshine that is interacting with the water to produce the thing. The element, the only element that I've talked about well in my earlier videos, saying the only thing that really, really exists is the density of the carbon world, which was a byproduct of the fire and the water, which produced what you see as a tree, or the element that is solid. So, when people say they believe in the scientific model of the world, they say the world, and they say this physical object world creates something, yet they can't explain away the simple, profound concept that light that has no weight comes together with water to produce a tree. They just give you some, oh no, something just happens there. It's not pulling anything out of the ground. How did that water just become what you see as a tree bark? How does it become, well, then we get to like the human body and why we should be full of water and why your brain should be full of water. And then thinking of water as, well, water is just oxygen. And oxygen and fire, well, what's fire? Fire is the use of the oxygen. It's the transmutative thing that's occurring. Fire seems to be a verb. Water is not. Water can be verb-like. Air is not a verb. It can be verb-like. Carbon or earth isn't. All those three things are nouns in the proper way. They can exhibit qualities of verbing, but fire is the only verb. Verb is the thing. See, and when I say thing, verb is the actionable thing. Verb is the quality of fire, the quality of the transmutation. We'll leave it there for everybody, and we'll talk soon. Cheers, y'all.